You should eat plant foods, right? Well, maybe not. You must have heard that plant foods are healthy for you, but there's a surprisingly compelling argument that they actually do more harm than good. Hear me out. Imagine for a moment you're out in the wild and you'll remain there for just 1 year surviving on what nature has to offer. What kind of food will you eat? What food might you find? It's not like walking into a supermarket that's packed out with readily available products. If you're going to merely survive, not only will you have to find something that's edible, but you'll also need to find something that contains all the nutrients your body needs. That's quite the task, I know. Yet somehow your ancestors managed, and eating leaves and grass wasn't how they did it. I think it goes without saying you can't just eat any old plant you find in nature. In fact, the vast majority of wild plants are just too poisonous to eat. Like all forms of life, plants must avoid being eaten in order to survive. And because they're not mobile, they can't run or hide, they've adapted to defend themselves by other means. Some have physical traits like thorns, thistles, and trichomes to deter predators. But all plants, without exception, fight to defend themselves using a sort of chemical warfare.
Plants defend themselves violently if necessary.
Think about it. If there were such a thing as a defenseless plant, it would effectively be an unprotected package of nutrients waiting to be eaten by any passing organism. Such a plant would soon go extinct. That's why plants contain phytotoxins and anti-nutrients like lectins, oxalates, glycoalkaloids, tannins and phytates, to name a few. These serve as a defense against herbivores, insects, fungi and certain bacteria. The Toxic Plant Phytotoxin Database lists a staggering 1,586 toxins from just 844 plant varieties. In fact, scientists know of at least 20,000 different plant toxins ranging from mild irritants to lethal poisons. No wonder edible plants are so hard to come by in nature. In a sense, all modern plant foods are human inventions. Through selective breeding, humans have increased their size and altered their taste over generations. Modern plant foods don't even closely resemble their wild, natural ancestors. Of the 400,000 known species of plants worldwide, just 12 species make up 75% of the world's food supply. You can safely eat these though, right? I hope. Lectins, found largely in whole grains and legumes, are plant proteins that interfere with your body's ability to absorb key nutrients such as iron, calcium, phosphorus and zinc. Deficiencies in these minerals can lead to brittle bones, fatigue and cognitive impairment. Lectins can also cause leaky gut, which is the foundation of every autoimmune disease in the book. This happens because lectins are relatively hard to break down in your stomach. The undigested plant protein can bind to your gut lining and poke holes in the walls of your intestines. This allows undigested food particles and unwanted toxins and bacteria to pass into your bloodstream, triggering immune responses in your body. This could mean arthritis, inflammatory bowel diseases like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, also psoriasis, multiple sclerosis, lupus, Hashimoto's, Addison's disease, the list goes on. Even if you don't suffer from an autoimmune disease, lectins like gluten traveling through the gut undigested can severely damage your microvilli, the microscopic finger-like structures lining the small intestine. These tiny structures serve to enhance nutrient absorption. So consuming plants that contain lectins is counterintuitive, as you eat to nourish yourself, not to decrease your ability to absorb nutrition.
Which leads to one of life's greatest ironies. The more whole grains you eat, the harder it is to absorb nutrients that your stomach just digested.
Kidney beans contain a lectin which, when consumed in too high a dose, causes serious health complications. Eating just a few raw or undercooked kidney beans can be enough to trigger lectin toxicity. Ricin is one of the most poisonous compounds known to man.
It's an extremely effective poison.
It's a lectin found in castor beans and is released the moment the bean is chewed and broken. Ingesting a mere 5 to 10 micrograms per kilogram of body weight,
An amount not much bigger than the head of a pin.
can be fatal.
It killed him? Oh, yes.
So if you want to avoid having gut issues, autoimmunity, brittle bones and mineral deficiencies, you might want to avoid all beans, peas and lentils, whole grains, nuts and seeds, tomatoes, berries and watermelon. Oxalates are another naturally occurring chemical found in plants. Plants use oxalates to bind with calcium to form calcium oxalate crystals, which act as a very effective defense against predators, as the crystals erode the mouths of insects and other feeding animals. The Indian stinging nettle uses these crystals in its stinging hairs to ward off predation. When the hairs sense touch, they inject calcium oxalate crystals along with other defense chemicals into your skin, causing irritation. Remember, plants need a defense against being eaten. As well as preventing overconsumption to extinction, oxalates help plants to regulate minerals. But in humans, high oxalate consumption can lead to mineral deficiencies because oxalates bind to calcium, magnesium and iron in your digestive tract. This forms insoluble crystals that can't be absorbed by your body. Perhaps the most commonly known side effect caused by oxalates is kidney stones.
You've got kidney stones.
75 to 80% of all kidney stones are made from calcium oxalates, raw spinach salads and smoothies being common culprits.
Kidney stones.
That chalk-like fuzzy feeling you get in your mouth after eating spinach? That's oxalic acid, a precursor to oxalates. When combined with calcium in your kidneys, crystals form, then grow, then aggregate, becoming kidney stones. Oxalate crystals can also accumulate elsewhere in the body, including the joints, causing arthritic pain, stiffness and inflammation. Oxalate crystals can also be a key factor in cases of gout. Not only do they deposit in your joints, but they can also interfere with uric acid excretion. Oxalates are mostly associated with the kidneys, as kidneys are burdened with the task of eliminating oxalates through blood filtration and waste excretion, which explains why a high oxalate diet is linked to fibrosis and kidney failure. Oxalates can also deposit in the skin, eyes, heart, and even the central nervous system. So if you want to be on the safe side, you should limit or avoid dark leafy greens, especially spinach, legumes, soy products in particular, potatoes, especially sweet potatoes, all nuts, seeds, grains, also rhubarb, berries, and even chocolate and tea. To put it in perspective, if you were to eat just 15,000 milligrams of oxalates, you wouldn't live to tell the tale, and you can find around 10% of that lethal dose in a single pack of spinach.
No way.
Tannins, which are a type of polyphenol, act as another defense mechanism for plants. Much like other plant chemicals, tannins cause many side effects when overconsumed. They will irritate your digestive tract, potentially causing stomach upset and vomiting. They can even bind to minerals like iron and zinc, making these essential nutrients less available to your body. When you eat proteins, they usually break down into peptides and amino acids. However, if you have some tannins on your plate, they can bind to proteins, preventing them from breaking down properly in your stomach. Tannins also interfere with digestive enzymes and their natural activity in your body. Tea and oregano are particularly high in tannins, but so are most herbs and spices. Other rich sources include coffee, nuts, fruits like grapes, apples, unripe bananas, olives, and pomegranates. And I have to apologize to some of the women out there for having to mention both wine and dark chocolate. Since grape skin and seeds are rich in tannins, with even more found in oak, you might be able to understand why wine is so high in tannin content. As for chocolate, it's the tannic acid that gives it such a bitter, unique characteristic. Hey, don't shoot the messenger, I'm just telling it like it is. Glycoalkaloids are toxic compounds found most prominently among plants of the Solanaceae family. Also known as the nightshades, tomatoes, peppers of all kinds, white and red potatoes, eggplant, also known as aubergine, all red spices, ashwagandha, and tobacco plants are all abundant in glycoalkaloids.
See?
They're essentially natural pesticides which aid in warding off pests and diseases. High levels in humans are toxic and commonly cause nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting. In severe cases, though, paralysis, coma, and death. In particular, be wary if you see green on potatoes. Those are rich in solanine, a glycoalkaloid poison. To this day, people still unexpectedly die from eating greening potatoes. Storing potatoes in a cool, dark place can keep solanine concentration at lower levels, but all potatoes contain glycoalkaloids regardless. Aside from that, potatoes are all metabolized as sugar as starch breaks down to glucose the moment you eat it. This causes tooth decay and, even more concerning, it causes glycation inside your body. In simple terms, glycation is when sugars like glucose and fructose attach themselves to proteins, lipids and nucleic acids without the aid of enzymes. This can lead to the formation of AGEs, advanced glycation end products, which disrupt normal cell function. AGEs contribute to aging and kidney damage. They also accumulate in blood vessels, raising blood pressure, increasing your vulnerability to heart disease. They're also heavily linked to degenerative brain diseases like Alzheimer's dementia. So the next time you're offered a side of fries with your meal, maybe take a pass. Cyanide is infamous for its toxic potency. Many of us, however, are unaware that cyanide is contained in so many plant foods. In fact, cyanogenic molecules are present in over 3,000 species of plants across the globe, all of which release cyanide the moment you break and chew them. Ranging from small amounts in leaves of wheat, rye, barley and maize, to vast quantities coming from cassava roots. Cyanide is yet another plant defense chemical. Although humans have engineered certain plant foods to produce less cyanide, we still need to ensure specific processes to deem certain plant foods edible, which begs the question, why go through all of this just so we can consume a plant that was never intended to be eaten in the first place? At least not by humans. Consuming just a few wild, bitter almonds is potentially lethal, especially for children, containing around 6.2 milligrams of cyanide per nut.
If you eat a handful of these bitter almonds, you die.
In stores and supermarkets, you'll find a much sweeter engineered almond variant. Just 385 of those almonds is enough to trigger potentially deadly toxicity. Other common sources of cyanide are pits and seeds of fruits like cherries, apples, apricots, peaches, plums, and nectarines. You may have heard that flax seeds are a superfood, but they contain cyanogenic glycosides which release hydrocyanic acid in the digestive system, which breaks down into cyanide. Not so super after all. Many people that love to juice stick whole apples in their juices and therefore wind up consuming cyanide from the apple seeds. Consuming apples like that won't keep any doctor away. You may also have heard that broccoli is a superfood, but when bitten and chewed, it releases the chemical sulforaphane. Now, sulforaphane has been called a cancer-fighting agent, but it doesn't just go after cancer cells, it kills healthy cells in your body as well. So it's anti-cell, not anti-cancer cell. It's also a genotoxin, meaning it damages your DNA. This is not a superfood at all. Superfoods don't attack healthy cells in your body or damage your DNA. By the way, all cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and bok choy contain glucosinolates. These two can have serious repercussions for your health when consumed. All plants contain toxins. Any botanist can tell you that these dangerous chemicals are the plant's mechanism to discourage consumption. But these very toxins have been touted as antioxidants. There's only one problem with that. Whenever you consume these so-called antioxidants, they activate your body's native antioxidant response. This is simply to counter the pro-oxidant effects of consuming the toxins found in plants. The exact same antioxidant response in your body can also be triggered by smoking tobacco, drinking alcohol, or eating poisons such as lead, mercury, or arsenic. This is essentially a natural defense mechanism of our own to combat oxidative stress. Ergo, plants deliver pro-oxidants, not antioxidants. Next, I'd like to talk briefly about a complex carbohydrate that all plants possess, and that, of course, is fiber. Fiber is often considered a vital component for maintaining good health. This indigestible portion of the plant has zero nutritional value and is certainly not essential for humans. Fiber heavily promotes gas and can cause stomach upsets, constipation, and worsen symptoms of IBD, IBS, and diverticulosis. It also gets in the way of the enzymatic relationship between the nutrients in your food and the lumen of your intestines. So fiber blocks nutrients from being absorbed, which makes you wonder why people eat it in the first place. Another problem with plants is that they all contain at least 60 potential carcinogens. A packet of tobacco often illustrates that it contains 70 known human carcinogens, and this isn't just because people smoke it. Most plants contain a similar profile of molecules thought to cause cancer. Brussels sprouts take the prize with a whopping 136 potential carcinogens. Just something worth considering whenever you do your next food shop. Most dietitians and nutritionists stress the importance of consuming plenty of natural whole foods, especially organic fruits and vegetables. But what if I told you that the plant foods that you find in your stores today are neither natural nor organic? Here are some examples of plant foods that have been genetically modified, hybridized, and engineered by humans beyond recognition. Cucumbers used to be inedible. They were so toxic that eating just one could finish you. They used to be more oval-shaped, with sharp needle-like spikes containing large toxic seeds. They were also much smaller in size, like all produce available today used to be. Cucumbers have since been modified and bred to be much larger, containing smaller seeds and no spikes, although you can often see small nodules where the spikes would have grown from. Carrots are a popular root vegetable best known as a source of beta-carotene, which gives carrots their orange colour. However, they didn't always used to be so big, sweet, or colourful. Carrots were practically inedible, small, pale roots that were very bitter and therefore toxic, and contained hardly any carotenoids. Before humans got their hands on avocados, they used to be extremely small and contained a huge seed, taking up most of the fruit. Nowadays, we produce avocados to have 10 times more fruit with a sweeter, creamier taste. Bananas are a popular fruit consumed by people all around the world, but they didn't used to be so sweet. They were considerably smaller in size, very bitter, and were mostly made up of toxic seeds. Through hybridization, cultivators produced bananas to be larger, sweeter, and for their seeds to shrink dramatically in size. Cruciferous vegetables are some of the most cultivated plants on the planet, but did you know that their parent species was a wild mustard plant? Selective breeding allowed the very varieties of flowers, buds, stems, and leaves to even exist. Like all edible plants consumed today, they are all man-made. Aubergine used to be tiny and pale in colour, usually white, yellow, or red. It got its alternative name, the eggplant, simply due to the fact that the white ones looked like eggs. These were also extremely bitter and totally inedible. The corn you eat today has also massively increased in size due to human engineering. Corn's earliest ancestor was a plant called teosinte, which was grown in Mexico and looked a lot like grass. It was a very small and slender plant and didn't possess many kernels. With thousands of years of artificial selection, corn has become much larger, sweeter, and has lots of softer kernels. We simply made the inedible edible. It may go without saying, but all of the plants that you eat today have been tampered with. Now they are noticeably larger, sweeter, and more colourful. So the next time you walk down the produce aisle, understand that nothing there is natural or organic, and it was never available all year round like it is in the modern world. If you grow your own produce, it doesn't make it organic. Humans have interfered too much with every edible plant variety for that to be true. All of them, without exception, contain plant toxins, which are simply their natural pesticides that prevent extinction. Many of the chemicals can be reduced via cooking, but not all of them, and with breakfast grains and fruit, you're eating them as they come. Bell peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, carrots, salad leaves, and also many nuts and seeds are often consumed raw too. Avoiding the use of artificial pesticides is going to be less harmful for your health, but of all the pesticides that you consume in your life, 99.99% of them come from the plants themselves. So if you're regularly consuming any of the plant foods mentioned in this video, the chances are you're not experiencing optimal health. Sorry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Yeah, what are you doing? A salad? I'll take a pass. And if you're sitting there wondering, well, what on earth should I be eating then? The answer is in this next video.